Hi, I'm Miss Kari with the Kenton County Public Library from the Covington Branch, and this is my son Aiden. He's going to help me today.
Hey.
We are going to make salt dough, somewhat like Play-Doh, but you let it air dry or you cook it at a low temperature in your oven so it hardens up. So today Aiden's going to measure out our ingredients. So this recipe is 1 part flour, 1 part salt, and a 1/2 part water. So we're just going to use a 1/2 cup of flour, 1/2 cup of salt, and a 1/4 cup of water. I'll go ahead and do this since it's kind of... Okay, so 1/2 cup of flour in your bowl. Okay, you want to pour the salt into the measuring cup. Go ahead. Okay, now this spout. One more. All the way up. Okay. So flour, or the salt in with the flour. Now you're going to take your spoon and you're just going to stir that around without the water first. Okay. Now you're going to slowly dump in your water as you're stirring. So do you want me to dump the water and you stir? Okay. Let's go ahead and dump it in. Just a little. Okay, that's good. Let me stir that in. A little more. Okay. How's everyone doing tonight? We're doing pretty good here. We've just been hanging out, enjoying the nice weather. Okay, and a little more. What I like about salt dough is you can kind of you can make different things with it. Tonight I'm going to show you the Tic-Tac-Toe board that we made. You can also make ornaments with this. I made an ornament sun catcher. I'll show you. Dump the rest of that in. I might add a little more.
A little more?
Flour. Yeah.
A little more, are you sure? You sure?
Probably should have left that last bit of water out, but...
Yeah. I'm regretting it.
So maybe more like a 1.5 cups of flour.
Maybe, yeah, maybe not.
Okay, Aiden, do you want this to be a certain color? Okay, so he's going to go ahead and add in some food coloring. We just have a gel type. So go ahead and squeeze that in. It's going to make his blue. You can leave this just its natural color, and then you can allow your kids to color it with markers or paint. We're going to go ahead and dye this one blue though.
That's probably what we're going to do with these things.
Okay, so then Aiden, what I need you to do is take all that out of the bowl and start kneading it. Do you know what kneading is? So you're just going to take it and kind of go back and forth, and then you can knead it on this mat. Just like you play with Play-Doh. Pretend like you're playing with Play-Doh. And he's wearing some gloves so he doesn't get dye all over his hands.
That would be Mother's Nightmare.
Okay. Got it? Okay.
Yeah, now it's all stuck.
It's okay. You can take your gloves off and put them in the garbage.
Very carefully.
I'm just going to roll that into a ball.
Blech.
I'm going to sprinkle some flour on my workspace. And do you want to get the rolling pin, Aiden? Go ahead and put some flour on the rolling pin. So put the rolling pin on the mat for me. And kind of roll it as I sprinkle it. Okay. Just going to help that from sticking. Okay, and then you're just going to roll that out. So you can do about, we do about like a 1/2 inch. Okay, so then you would take, that's fine, your cookie cutter, and you're just going to cut out different shapes. If you don't have cookie cutters, you could use a knife and cut out different shapes. So what I do is when we make sugar cookies, we cut a bunch of them out and then we go around it and we get all the extra dough and then transfer our shapes to the cookie sheet. So I would line your cookie sheet with parchment paper. You can use wax paper at a lower heat. Do not use wax paper in your oven at a higher heat. It will melt to the product. It's okay. So once you have your dough the way you want it cut out, you're gonna bake that about 225 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 to 3 hours. It really depends on how large your product is, how thick it is. So you'll just want to check it every so often to see if it's hard, if it's getting harder. I'll show you we made a tic-tac-toe board. So we just cut out a square out of the salt dough. And then I went ahead and scored all the lines on there. You can see that for our board. And then I took two different cookie cutter shapes. I used a flower and a star shape. If you didn't have cookie cutters, you could freehand that. You could also just, you could cut out just square shapes and paint those 2 different colors so you have a set for each player. And then, so we just have our shapes. So what Aiden's gonna do is he's just gonna use paint to color his shapes, and then you'll be able to play tic-tac-toe with your board. I also made butterflies, just using a cookie cutter. And with the butterflies, I used pony beads just to put in the middle here. Now, when these are baked at a low heat for a couple hours, they really don't melt enough to do the sun catcher. So, and then with this one, I used a permanent marker on this side, just to show you an example. And on this side, I used a kid's washable marker. They don't come off. And then if you wanted to keep this long term, you could use something to seal it with. I would recommend just using some Mod Podge. You can actually create that with glue and water. Or if you have some spray sealant, you can also use that. When you're doing your cutouts of the salt dough, if you want an ornament, make sure that you use something to create a hole so you can put your string through. Save that. I also made one, let's see here, a little cookie with leftovers. Aiden did a cookie and then he colored it with a marker.
I didn't make that.
Did another little butterfly where I cut out. So for this one was my first attempt on trying to do a sun catcher, but the pony beads would not melt at the lower temperature. So then I had to just kind of trial and error it. One, I almost set the oven on fire. So this one I was able to get to work. So I just did, I have the alphabet for cookie cutter, so I just used the letter J because our last name is Jones. And then I did this one at I did 325 degrees for about 20 minutes. And then I cranked it up to about 450 for about 10 more minutes, 10-15 minutes to get those beads to start melting. Now they weren't melting all the way, so I took a skewer and I just went in there and started smashing them down so they would fill in more, and it seemed to work. So they just kind of needed to be pliable so you could mess with it. Then I took glue, covered it in glue, and then put glitter on it. Made sure I poked my holes in it so we can hang it in the window. So we just used a cookie cutter heart to make that. So really easy. Like I said, you can play around with the salt dough recipe. I've seen different recipes online. I saw one that was 4 cups of flour, cup of salt, and then water as needed. So you got the consistency you want it. So you can just play around with it. It's a good time for the kids just to kind of do some science experiments, just experiment with the different measurements. And you can also add in the food coloring. If you're gonna let it air dry, you could add in sequins, glitter. I wouldn't add that in if you're gonna bake it. If you're gonna let it air dry, it's gonna probably need to air dry for at least 48 hours, if not longer. It depends on how large your project is and how thick it is. The thinner it is, the quicker it's gonna dry. So like I said, markers really work. So if you have little ones that maybe you don't want them to paint, you can just give them 5 or under kids. Okay. You can just give them washable markers to use. It writes on there pretty nicely. I'll go ahead and demonstrate that. I can get in there. So, and it doesn't smear or come off, which is really nice. And then I just noticed I had one more thing. So on this one, I did the pony beads, and then I also did dots with paint. And I didn't use a paintbrush for this. I went ahead and just used a toothpick. It worked really nice. And that took about maybe an hour to dry. I just used some acrylic paint that I have at the house for that. So, does anybody have any questions tonight about our project?
Goodness gracious.
Hi, Ann.
How does this thing
Hi, Jessica.
close?
It's good to see everyone. Oh, you don't need to close the date, and it's fine. So, that is our project for today. If you do this project, please post your results in the comments below. We'd love to see those. Make sure that you check out our website at kentonlibrary.org for all of our online resources. We have tons of databases to help kids with school. We have our ebooks that you can check out. We have magazines that can be checked out through all of our digital resources. You can get on there and watch movies. So just make sure you check all those out at kentonlibrary.org. If you don't have a card, you can apply for a card online. And we can't wait to see everyone back at the branches. As soon as we're able to reopen and have the public back, we will do that.
Yes.
Make sure that you check out our other programming online. For the rest of April, we have story times on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 10. And then we have another how-to Wednesday at 4 that Miss Jill will be leading. In May, we'll have a similar lineup. And then in June, our programs will focus more on our summer reading theme, which is Imagine Your Story. So it's all about fairy tales, fantasy, and mythology. So we're going to really have some fun with that. Some of the projects that we had planned at the branch, we're going to be able to offer online. And we're hoping that if we do have some drive-through services available, we might be able to offer some of those craft kits for you to complete the project with us while we're on Facebook Live. So just be on the lookout for that. We'll be posting those updates as soon as we know them. This is a changing situation for everyone. It changes every day. So we are just trying to go with what is recommended to us by our governor and by our local health department. So everyone stay healthy. And again, if you complete this project, post your pictures in the comments. If you have any tips for this project, I'd like to hear those too. I think there are people out there who are a lot more creative than I am, and I can see that Aiden actually did finish painting. So he painted the flowers green and his stars yellow. Tic-Tac-Toe is one of our favorite games to play. We do it outside with the sidewalk chalk, and now we have a board inside that we can do. You can always customize these. You could create your own little bingo board, and if you use chalk paint on it, they'd be able to write on it with chalk, and then you could erase it. If you have any whiteboard paint, you'd be able to do that as well. Kind of just whatever you have lying around your house to use. So I will be back next Monday at 4 with another project. I will post what that project is in the event once I know what I'm doing. If you have any suggestions, let me know. I usually don't make up my mind until about Friday, so give me your suggestions. I'm kind of open. As long as I have the materials at home, I'm kind of willing to do any kind of how-to that I can. I think that's all I have for tonight. Again, can't wait to see everyone back at the library. Everyone take care. Thank you. You want to say bye, Aiden?
Yeah.
This is Aiden. He just can't wait to go back to school next year.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.